I wasn't able to access or retrieve specific details from the YouTube video at that link, but I can craft the kind of long, emotional, engaging story you're asking for based on the title you provided and the emotional themes it suggests. A little boy who thinks Santa forgot him, meeting a lonely billionaire on Christmas night at a bus stop. This story will be original, complete, and suitable for approximately 15-minute narrated YouTube format with emotional beats and a strong message. Mom said Santa forgot us again, a Christmas story. The moment Ethan looked up at the tall man in the tailored coat, his tiny voice cracked like the winter air. Mom said Santa forgot us again. It wasn't a question, it was a statement, raw and aching, hung with years of disappointment that no child should ever carry. The streetlights glowed golden on the fresh December snow, but they couldn't warm the chill between them. Across from the bus stop, cars passed with holiday music playing softly from radios. The city was alive with Christmas cheer, but here, on this quiet corner, it felt like a different world. The man, Carter Blackwood, didn't know what to say at first. He wasn't mean, not exactly. People called him cold sometimes, but that was just because he never learned how to talk about feelings. Money never cared about feelings. Money never hurt, that's what Carter had always believed. Yet somehow, the hope in Ethan's eyes made his heart feel heavy in a way he hadn't felt since he was a boy himself. "You believe Santa forgot you?" Carter asked, his voice gentler than he expected. Ethan nodded. His mother, Amy, sat on the bench beside him, wrapped in a coat too thin for the bite of winter. There were dark circles under her eyes, and exhaustion seemed to press into her very shoulders. "We had a little money," she said quietly when Carter glanced her way, "but bills came first." Her voice seemed to break on the words. Carter looked down at the boy's small, rosy cheeks. A lump formed in his throat, something he hadn't experienced in years, empathy. "You know," Carter began slowly, "sometimes we think Santa brings toys. But maybe Santa brings something else too. Sometimes he brings people." Ethan tilted his head, curious, uncertain. Carter gestured to the snow-covered bus schedule. "I was waiting for a ride too," he admitted. "But maybe I should wait a little longer." Amy's eyes met his, filled with surprise. "What's your name, kid?" Carter asked. "Ethan." "Well, Ethan," Carter said, crouching down to meet his gaze, "Santa might be late, maybe he's just lost. Or maybe he's got bigger things to deliver." Ethan didn't smile, but the slight lift at the corner of his mouth was enough encouragement. For a moment, they stood in silence, three souls in the cold night air. Then Carter did something unexpected. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. "I have some money," he said to Amy, "but I want to do something better than just handing it to you." Amy blinked. "What do you mean?" Carter took a breath. "Let's get warm first," he said. "Let's have dinner. I'll buy you something real to eat." Ethan's eyes widened. "Like Christmas dinner?" "Yeah," Carter said with a gentle nod. They walked together to the nearest diner, the kind with big windows and red leather seats that glowed under warm lights. Inside, the scent of soup and melting cheese on toast wrapped around them like a hug. Carter ordered bowls of stew, warm bread, hot chocolate with whipped cream, everything that felt like Christmas, if only for one night. Ethan talked about toys he didn't get, about school, about how he used to write letters to Santa every year. Amy's eyes brimmed with tears as she listened. Carter found himself quietly explaining that sometimes grown-ups forget what Christmas really means, and sometimes they need children to remind them. After dinner, Carter didn't just make a generous donation, he asked how he could help in a real way. Not charity that disappears, but support that lasts. He learned that Amy had lost her job during the year's hardest months and that Ethan missed school sometimes because they couldn't always afford the bus ride. Every problem was layered in worry, fatigue, and fear, but not hopelessness. Carter made a decision that night that would change them all. He found a warm hotel room nearby and paid for the next few days, a place to rest properly, with heat and privacy and quiet. He gave Amy contacts for job support programs he knew about. And to Ethan, he gave something special, a promise. "Next Christmas," Carter said quietly as they stepped out of the diner into the softly falling snow, "you're going to have the best Christmas ever. And maybe, you can help me remember next year what Christmas really is." Ethan grinned. A real grin, not the sad, resigned smile he'd worn at the bus stop. A hopeful grin. On the walk back, the bus finally came, bright yellow against the white night. Carter didn't ride it with them, but as they stepped aboard, Ethan turned and waved, clutching a stuffed bear Carter had bought him. Thanks for being Santa, Ethan called out. Carter stood on the sidewalk, watching the bus drive away, lights glowing like stars frozen in motion. He realized something then. For the first time in years, he felt lighter. Christmas wasn't about presents under a tree. It was about presence, being there for someone. That night, Carter wrote a letter of his own. Not to Santa, but to himself, promising that next year, he wouldn't wait at a bus stop. He'd be the one bringing hope to someone who needed it. Because sometimes Santa doesn't forget. Sometimes he shows up in people, in hearts willing to care. And that Christmas, in a little diner with a boy and his mother, Carter finally felt Santa had come home. End message. A single act of kindness can change the trajectory of a life, and sometimes, those who seem most successful are the ones who need to be reminded what it really means to give. If you want, I can also create a script version with chapters and timestamps for a YouTube narration.